Felix Kessel, a very warm welcome to the Red Zone. Your agency has just done the new Amstel TV spot. So here's the starting question for you. What's the broad approach when you do a television commercial for a beer?
You've got to start by understanding who on earth you're talking to. Beer drinkers love enjoyment. You know, beer is social, beer is fun, beer is friendly. And I think the starting point has always got to be, how am I going to make their lives a little better? How am I going to give them a little bit more fun? I think that's got to be the starting place with any beer commercial. I think that too often we get caught up in trying to find a sort of a grand way in and forgetting about what the market actually wants out of this thing, which is something enjoyable. After all, I mean, that is beer, right?
But how difficult is it to come up with a unique insight for a beer? I mean, let me suggest to you that beer's golden most of the time. It's fizzy, yeah, and it's made of hops.
Yep.
How do you find an insight?
So there you go. You've hit the nail on the head. We're in a unique space in alcohol advertising in that we're not allowed to advertise our benefit. Right? If we could, you know, we'd have a lot of very, very strange advertising out there, but we just can't do it. So you're looking for an insight into the market that likes your particular product. In our case, in Amstel Lager's case, it's a premium beer, South Africa's first premium beer. There's some badge value that is associated with that. Finding an insight means understanding your market and the reason that they socialize around beer rather than the actual product itself. In our case, there was a resounding sort of resoundingly successful insight we think we used, which was, it takes a village to raise a boy, or in our case, a man. It's a definite African insight. And this thought of community being able to raise individuals is something that is widely celebrated in South Africa and was the core, actually the root of what this thing was about. How do you take someone from not believing in themselves to believing in themselves was a wonderful space to play.
Is it important, I wonder, for brands these days to show that kind of altruism? I've just got back, I'll drop a name here. I've just got back from the Cannes Advertising Festival, and Sir Martin Sorrell from WPP talking about this notion of doing good is good for business. This notion, I mean, it's a well-trodden notion, but this notion of good-vertising, which kind of strays into this particular commercial that you've done.
Entirely.
Is that important, or do we see through it?
I think it's very important. I think that the days are gone that you can, that as a marketer you can just throw your sales pitch at someone and expect them to believe you. If you can't justify your belief, if you can't justify your story in one way or another, people do see through you. I think that the market is done with sort of ridiculous flamboyance in advertising. They want something honest and true. And I think that it's certainly when you're pitching for their hearts, which is what we're after, if you're not resonating with them at a very, very real level, you're not doing your job.
Very quickly, talk us through the ad then. It was a big city location shoot,
absolutely,
but also an interesting soundtrack.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's the story of a boxer who has a community rally around him to pick him back up, get him back on his feet, and show him, allow him to rediscover the joy in his craft, which is boxing. And in discovering that joy and taking the time he needs, he succeeds. And that's the core of what Amstel is about, take the time you need. The soundtrack is by a band called the XX, it's a British band, very successful at the moment, a little offbeat, reworked and remastered by one of our favorite, Rob Schroeder, for a South African kind of context. So a very big epic scale ad, which I think is important for a premium brand, lots of great production value, and a fantastic soundtrack that leaves people.
All right. Give us the insight now. Agency, marketing department, marketing director.
Yes.
How should a creative person be working with a marketing person?
Hand in glove. It really has to be that way. Again, the distance between agencies and clients through things like sort of the client service filter, those days are gone. You need to be, the people who are doing the job and doing the work need to be in the marketing department's face. You are a unit and you need to stay that way.
Typically, where do the problems come in?
The problems come in where people start working in silos. Immediately the creatives or brand teams, where they start portioning out work so the people start working in a not connected way, problems start happening. It's the old broken telephone. It's always our biggest nemesis.
How do you fight the marketing director who wants to adapt, who wants you to compromise on the work that you're doing?
So you make sure that right up front you've all sworn to what the idea is, and then that becomes your holy grail and your yardstick. You measure it by the idea. It's much easier to justify why things should or shouldn't change if you're all slave to that particular thing, that wonderful idea in the middle.
Tell us in conclusion a little bit about your agency. Why should marketers hire you?
Well, I think our most important differentiator is we're completely media agnostic. We are an ideas agency. We come from a background of above, below, through, inside, outside the line, and so we hold an idea as a solution as our sort of holy grail. Why should you hire us? You should hire us because once we have that idea that we agree is going to make a difference for you as a client, we do everything in our power to bring that idea into the world in the grandest and greatest way possible.
Thanks for joining us in the Red Zone.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Jeremy.